After months of turbulence, Boeing CEO Dave Calhoun has announced that he will be stepping down at the end of the year. Boeing's chairman, Larry Kellner, and the head of the commercial airplane unit, Stan Deal, are also leaving the company.
Now, what we know this time is that the Chinese government has asked its carriers to stop taking delivery of Boeing aircraft in the meantime.
Now, the impact of growing global tensions now reaching U.S. airlines. American Airlines and United both suspending some international routes as a precaution, they say.
The transatlantic aviation sector has hit a wall. In just 6 months, more than $35 billion in EU-US trade has been frozen, not by war or recession, but by tariffs. According to customs data and logistics platforms like Freightos, imports of wide-body aircraft from Europe to the US dropped 38%, while aircraft part shipments fell by nearly 25% in the first half of 2025. What began as a dispute over public support for Airbus and Boeing has spiraled into something far larger. Production lines are halting. Contracts are suspended. Global suppliers are scrambling. This isn't just a subsidy fight anymore, it's a full-blown supply chain seizure. The $35 billion freeze in transatlantic trade is more than just a number. It's a slow bleed from the heart of Europe's industrial economy. With U.S. tariffs throttling Airbus exports and retaliatory taxes biting back, the first casualties weren't visible on runways. They were hidden inside Europe's supply chain, and the damage is cascading fast. In Germany's Baden-Württemberg composite fuselage, subcontractors saw their capacity plunge from 86% to just 62% in Q2 2025. That drop isn't just a production slowdown, it's an industrial warning light. Meanwhile, in Toulouse, the heart of Airbus manufacturing, 800 temporary workers didn't have their contracts renewed. Quiet layoffs, frozen assembly lines, subcontractors left in limbo. But this isn't just about a few factories tightening their belts. Each Airbus A321neo is a flying ecosystem built from thousands of precision parts sourced across the continent. Wing boxes from Spain, cables from Poland, gear from Ireland. When the US closed the door on Airbus imports, it didn't just stall deliveries, it shattered the continuity of production that Europe's aerospace economy depends on. What we're witnessing is the unraveling of a system that took decades to build and only months to fracture. And the ripple effect won't stop at the factory gates. When production stalls at the top, it reverberates through metal shops, tech suppliers, training centers, and logistics hubs. This isn't a temporary slowdown. It's a systemic pause, one that threatens to become permanent if the deadlock holds. You might think America could win this trade war by default, that as Airbus gets hit with tariffs and loses market ground, Boeing would naturally rise to dominate the skies. But that assumption just crashed into a harsh reality. Boeing can't fill the gap, not now, and maybe not even in the next few years. Let's start with the airlines. Delta and United Airlines both postponed their Airbus A321XLR deliveries to 2027, opening what many assumed was an opportunity for Boeing's 737 MAX to re-enter the front lines. But that pivot, it never materialized. And it's not just about airline preference, it's about capability. Behind closed doors, Boeing is battling its own operational bottlenecks. Thanks to Europe's retaliatory tariffs, key subcomponents like cockpit displays, landing gear systems, and interior cabin parts now cost 8 to 10% more. These aren't optional extras, they're essential, and the sudden cost spike has blown a hole in Boeing's already thin profit margins. In a business where every dollar counts, that's not a hiccup, it's a hard stop. Meanwhile, on the ground, the picture isn't any brighter. At Boeing's South Carolina facility, quality control issues with 787 fuselage sections have triggered additional delivery suspensions, snarling timelines just as customers were already reconsidering orders. Instead of gaining ground, Boeing is stuck facing backlogs, delays, and now growing skepticism from global carriers. And the economic cost, it's mounting fast. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce has confirmed that $35 billion in transatlantic trade has already been blocked due to the aviation dispute. And if this stalemate continues, that number could balloon to $65 billion by the end of 2025. That's not a detour, it's a full-scale economic stall. So while Airbus bleeds out in Europe, Boeing isn't soaring. It's limping, caught in the crossfire of a war it didn't start and can't finish alone. Both aerospace giants are grounded, and with no clear resolution in sight, the entire aviation supply chain remains in a holding pattern, burning fuel time and billions of dollars, all while competitors like China's Comac quietly plot a new course.
Well, if Canada decides to,
buy equipment and those types of things that no longer are interoperable with America, it means that that's one of the fundamental agreements of NORAD. And if Canada can do what it wants, and if it decides to move in a different direction, we would have to have some kind of a discussion on NORAD, yeah.
What started as a tariff dispute is now hitting passengers' factories and families. The ripple effect of blocked aircraft deliveries is pushing airfare up fast. On the Paris-New York route, the average economy ticket rose by $50 or $60 as airlines delay new aircraft purchases and keep older, less efficient planes in service. With the average fleet age rising from 10.7 to 11.3 years, kerosene consumption and maintenance costs are climbing and passengers are footing the bill. But this isn't just about ticket prices. Under the surface, aviation components have become one of the fastest-growing inflation hotspots. A Federal Reserve bulletin in August flagged a 4.7x rise over the core CPI, leading to an 18% annual increase in aviation-related inflation. That's not just statistical noise, it's a systemic cost spike that narrows the Fed's policy options. And the labor market, it's already feeling the strain. In Charleston, South Carolina, a major Boeing hub, 600 manufacturing jobs disappeared, with local reports attributing 2/3 directly to tariffs. Across the Atlantic, the Bremen-Hamburg aerospace cluster saw 900 temporary contracts scrapped, hammering Europe's industrial heartlands. This isn't some abstract macroeconomic trend. It's a real-world downturn spreading across seats, salaries, and supply chains. And the longer the tariffs hold, the deeper the losses will sink. The aviation dispute isn't just grounding planes, it's throttling the global economy. In its August 2025 interim forecast, the World Trade Organization WTO delivered a quiet but seismic warning. It slashed the global goods trade growth projection from 3.2% to 2.4%, identifying transatlantic aviation tariffs as a primary driver of the slowdown. At first glance, that 0.8% drop may not seem catastrophic, but beneath that seemingly modest revision lies a far deeper wound. The WTO estimates that the aviation tariffs alone wiped out $17.9 billion in global transaction value within just 6 months. And this is only the surface impact. Aviation isn't just about planes, it's a hyper-integrated, high-value chain of advanced manufacturing, precision electronics, and software systems. Disrupt one node and the entire lattice trembles. For economies like France and Germany, which anchor Europe's aerospace supply chain, this means stalled production, missed delivery targets, and declining industrial confidence. In the U.S., states like Washington and South Carolina, heavily reliant on Boeing's contracts, are already experiencing manufacturing job losses and capital outflows. Even Ireland, a global leader in aircraft leasing, has seen bond spreads widen as market uncertainty deepens. What's worse? The multiplier effect. Aerospace is deeply entangled with multiple other sectors: logistics, energy, engineering, software, AI systems, insurance, and even tourism. Every delayed aircraft isn't just a blow to Airbus or Boeing. It's a slowdown in airport infrastructure upgrades, a hiccup in pilot training contracts, and a dent in carbon reduction planning. The lesson is clear: we no longer live in an economy where tariffs can be contained. A fight that started with aircraft subsidies has now metastasized into a global supply chain cancer. The architecture of 21st century trade is built on trust, speed, and scale, and these tariffs are dismantling all three. If nothing changes, this won't just be an aviation slowdown. It could be the early warning of a broader economic contraction, one fueled not by market forces, but by policy miscalculations. This isn't just a trade war, it's a climate derailment in disguise. As tariffs stall deliveries and contracts evaporate, the average fleet age on routes like Paris-New York has quietly crept up from 10.7 years in 2023 to 11.3 in 2025. That may sound marginal, but in aviation age matters. Older planes burn 6.5% more fuel, drive up maintenance costs, and emit far more carbon. Airlines already under pressure to go green are now flying backward. But the longer-term fallout is even more serious. Airbus's Zeroe program, a cornerstone of Europe's climate-neutral aviation strategy, was slated to deliver hydrogen-powered aircraft by 2032. Now it faces a $1.1 billion funding shortfall, according to internal budget revisions submitted to the European Commission. That gap is directly tied to reduced revenue from frozen orders and rising costs triggered by the tariff war. With Berlin hesitant to commit and Paris arguing for strategic autonomy, the project risks delays or collapse. Across the Atlantic, the U.S. isn't faring better. Boeing, under the Inflation Reduction Act, was expected to benefit from billions in green tax credits to scale climate-friendly aircraft programs. But as the trade freeze deepens and global orders thin out, those credits are going unclaimed. The Congressional Budget Office now estimates up to $19 billion in incentives may simply evaporate over the next decade, blowing a hole in Washington's climate finance plan. And while politicians talk about jobs power and to leverage, the real damage is happening elsewhere in the quiet dismantling of green aviation. If these programs stall now, there won't be a quick restart. The risk, lost decade in climate tech, while the rest of the world, including China and India, races ahead. This isn't just about tariffs, it's about whether the West can still afford to lead the future. Behind the tariffs lies a deeper battle, one not of planes, but of priorities. Brussels responded to the aviation fallout with urgency, launching a $2.3 billion European automation fund aimed at shielding 14th of 500 high-tech jobs through digital transformation and AI-based manufacturing upgrades. But cracks showed early Germany, the biggest beneficiary, saw half its allocation pushed to 2026 due to fiscal constraints and the infamous debt brake clause. In short, the rescue arrived just not on time. Washington, meanwhile, floated what looked like a peace offering, a green aviation joint fund tied to climate goals, inviting the EU to align with the Inflation Reduction Act IRA in exchange for a 5-year tariff truce. But the deal came with strings. The US wanted Airbus included in IRA tax breaks, a move Brussels interpreted as shifting the subsidy debate, not solving it. In response, EU negotiators demanded that any future deal link financial benefits to shared carbon benchmarks, not just industrial favoritism. The talk's frozen, and in that vacuum, new players have emerged. China's COMAC landed 64 new orders for its C919 jet in just 8 months, with several coming from non-EU European airlines. At the same time, India's Indigo pulled out of a major Boeing deal, opting to delay rather than commit in a climate of uncertainty. These aren't just symbolic moves. They signal a realignment in global aviation away from the transatlantic axis toward a new Asia-led corridor. What once was an aero subsidy dispute has now grown into a full-blown strategic standoff. And while Brussels and Washington argue over incentives and reciprocity, they may both be missing the real threat being replaced. If tariffs on Airbus hurt the US more than they help, if Boeing can't absorb the fallout, and if carbon targets slip while supply chains unravel, then what exactly are these tariffs protecting? This isn't just a trade dispute anymore. It's a test of strategic vision. And so far, both Washington and Brussels appear to be defending in old battles, while new players quietly reshape the field. If this changed how you think about transatlantic trade, like the video. Subscribe for more deep dives into the hidden costs of policy decisions. Comment below. Are these aviation tariffs smart defense or short-sighted self-harm? And stay with us, because the next collision won't be in the skies. It'll be on the road. Electric vehicles are next, and the stakes might be even higher.